would you look at that, it's time for another video. It's been a minute. I feel like I've been away for a while. I've been trying to, struggle through and battle through some family stuff, but this is worth talking about. If you didn't see it, Blitz skirmish season results are in. Yes, the LL results are also in. We can look at the LL wins as well. But I think this is what I want to start with because Zen just speed runs the format I just undersold it completely. It is the most underrated comment possible because he absolutely broke the format in half, and everyone recognized that, meaning that he is now completely in the living legend category and will officially be retired after Friday of this week, which is just bonkers. I mean, we could sit here and wax poetic about the effect that Zen in general has had on the game of Flesh and Blood and what needs to continue to be done to curb his power in Classic Constructed and maybe even Living Legend, but perhaps not so much. But you know what we aren't going to talk about is curbing his power in Blitz because, the solution to that problem is just let it happen, apparently, because he is now no longer in the format. He is officially Living Legended out. Now, not only is he rotated out of the format, but we also have two other heroes that join him in the Living Legend status this week. And that, of course, includes Briar and Dash. Both were sitting on the precipice of 500 points and have now crossed over the threshold to become Living Legend heroes. What does this mean for the rest of the format? Well, Dash was a potent but underplayed hero. It just went burr a lot and takes with it the pistol, the Mechanologist pistol that almost everybody ran in all other forms. Well, I shouldn't say almost everybody. It was really just run by none other, where is she, than Data Doll. So Data Doll now has to switch. Dash Database, of course, runs the gun, which doesn't really affect her much because Dash rotating out, not taking the gun with her, instead just taking the Techloplasma pistol. And Briar rotating out means, one, you no longer have to worry about Channel Mount Heroic and all of the craziness that comes alongside of that, and you also don't have to contend with new Rune Blades getting their hands on Rosetta Thorn, at least unless Rosetta Thorn is somehow reprinted in this upcoming set, which I don't think is going to be the case, but that would be hilarious if it is. Nevertheless, Briar taking Rosetta Thorn is a huge deal, just like it was a huge deal in the Classic Constructed format when she rotated. Briar taking that means that Aurora builds, which have been floating around recently, I don't know if Aurora's scored much on the way of points. I don't think. Where is Aurora? She's up here somewhere. No, is she not even on the list yet? I thought she was. I'm pretty sure I saw her, but I don't know. I don't see her on there, so maybe I am just incorrect. I saw Terra. Terra's right here, but I guess Aurora hasn't punched her ticket through yet. Nevertheless, Aurora builds were floating around on a variety of testing sites, and I've actually played a couple, or I've seen a couple played in person. Nevertheless, she hasn't cut into it, and she no longer has access to Rosetta Thorn. Now she has to play her weapon, which is Starfall, and contend with actually playing that out. And what does this mean for the rest of the meta as far as Blitz is concerned? Blitz, to me, by and large, goes back to what it was prior to Zen's dominance. There's going to be a lot of people that complain about Blaze, and perhaps rightfully so. She's very powerful, but I think the problem with that complaint, that like knee-jerk reaction Blaze is a problem for the game, is that she, in a lot of ways, is a dog into Rhinar, is a dog into Levia. Not as much into KO, because KO doesn't have, evasive damage in the form of like intimidation and just the insanity of Blood Rush Art of War that Levia does, which just wins games. And for some reason, every time I play against a Levia, they always draw Blood Rush Art of War on like turn 1 if I go first, because they put me first, or turn 2 after I've, pushed some damage over them. It's bonkers. It's insane. But this and this mean that she has some natural predators in the format. That coupled with just other heroes being able to get there if you don't draw certain pieces in the right order. Even if you play at a really high level, I think sometimes, just like in any game, there is some amount of variance, and she does falter a little bit. But and also, I should also mention that certain Prism builds that just try to stomp you down or try to just propagate the board with a bunch of auras that you really can't deal with, even if you run 2 Scours, means that Blaze is neutered a little bit. And to me, it's neutered enough for it to be a fun and powerful and still sort of top tier hero in the format without it being just Zen levels of broken. So that's an important thing. I would say that if you're looking at playing in a Blitz skirmish this weekend, or if you're going to be joining me in Tampa, Florida for the world premiere and you decide to play in some Blitz side events on the weekend, I would expect to see, and this is, it's kind of like with a caveat, I'll talk about the caveat in a second, but I would expect to see Blaze and Rhinar, and unfortunately Levia's super underrepresented, but she should be towards the top, be highly represented. Levia, KO be represented, and then Victor, who I didn't talk about because, you know, I would say that Blaze actually has a positive matchup into Victor. Feels quite good overall. But Victor is just good into just about everything else. And that's the crazy cool part about the way that this meta breaks down, is that the brutes almost exclusively prey on the wizards. Well, maybe not even Emperor. Emperor has a little bit more game into him because he has equipment that blocks. And that is a huge thing against Rhinar, and even to some degree against Levia. But I would say that Blaze specifically, the Rhinars of the world and the Levias of the world, and maybe even KOs, prey on her. And from that point, then you figure out what preys on them, and Victor is pretty solid. I wouldn't really say Prism does, but I feel like Victor is like the next solid answer to all of them and sits atop the list as well. So it's really interesting to see this, you know, minus Briar, see this minus Dash, and specifically see this minus Zen. And I gotta say, I'm happy to see Zen rotate at least in one format, because it does mean that you don't have to basically just high roll him. Funnily enough, I've been playing just a ton of Blaze, like a ton of Blaze, and Blaze didn't have the worst matchup into him, but it was essentially a race and you kind of had to get a little bit lucky. Just a little bit lucky, but you'd still had to get lucky to be able to win that matchup. And I just feel like it just made so much of this just untenable. I also do want to point out the Living Legend results, which looks like this, and this is really interesting. The Prism Sculptor of Arclight sitting on top of Zen. This was something that a lot of people have been waiting to happen, is Prism sort of taking the reins of the meta, namely because heroes like Kano have been really rising up and showing out. Heroes like Zen, of course, have been showing up and showing out. And Prism does have answers in some way, shape, or form into both of these matchups. They're not the only heroes, of course, that are represented. Chain, you see, Lexi made, in my opinion, a bit of a surge in comparison to how she performed previously to the skirmish season. So she's surging a little bit, and Icelander still, you know, being represented and picking up wins with 8 wins, tied with Lexi this week. And so that's kind of interesting to look out at. But Prism, the dominant force currently, with Zen right behind her on 13 wins. And the question will be, you know, does Zen need some sort of like restriction in this format for him to, you know, play nicely with others, a la the Starvo treatment? In a way, he's doing a very similar thing that Starvo did, but albeit at a more controlled level. And perhaps that's a good thing and a fine thing, and you can make your own decisions wherein. But is there something that needs to be done to, you know, throttle him back, or is his presence a good thing for a variety of the other heroes floating around? That is the question that we'll perhaps see solved after the 3rd week. I imagine, because of what has been said by LSS and by Brian Gottlieb on Twitter, I would imagine that there will be an emergency, we'll put it that way, an emergency banned and restricted announcement on the Monday after, exactly on the Monday after the world premiere this coming weekend. That is my expectation. I think it will touch Zen again in Classic Constructed, and I'm curious to see if it touches Zen in Living Legend. I would not put it past them for them to try and throttle him back a pinch, but it might also just be one of those scenarios that they've talked about where Living Legend is the format for powerful heroes. It's the format to do degenerate things, and it encourages you in an eternal way to be able to tap into those, you know, high high power levels. So I'm curious to see if they touch it there, but I do expect them to have some sort of an emergency announcement on Monday of this coming week. And I'm curious to see what they do. I would guess it'd be like Strides of Reprisal. I don't think that they're ever going to touch Art of War, but that would be a nuclear option. That would be nuke it from orbit and also kill like several other decks in the process. It would be really interesting to watch. That would perhaps create the most excitement and drama and shock of just nuking everything from orbit and saying, hey, Art of War, banned. I don't think it's going to happen, though. I think instead it would be something a little bit more along the lines of Strides of Reprisal, because it's the only card he has access to that doesn't hurt others. I don't know if that would be enough of a step, but it certainly takes double Art of War and triple Art of War, which is just crazy, really off the table, because you no longer get access to banishing the Tiger, and you have to just, like play your normal big turns out. Because you don't have access to, creating a Tiger into your hand via the Strides. So that'll be the interesting thing to note. I guess you could still banish a Tiger. You just have to create one first, which is a little trickier. Nevertheless, I do expect to see that. This is an interesting result to me. I'm curious to see how this format unfolds, because I believe this is going to be one of the best formats going forward, if not the premier format. I know Classic Constructed right now, the premier format, but 2025, 2026, who knows? Who knows if, Living Legend could just supplant all others. I think it would heavily depend on how many heroes rotate over the next few years and whether or not they even really want that to be the kind of de facto format. I think that's the other important part. If they don't want it to be the de facto format and Classic Constructed is, then they will continue to put this in like calling slots over the next few years, maybe Battle Hardens as well, which we could, already see being put into place. Obviously skirmish seasons as well. I think this is a fantastic format, and the fan feedback and the feedback from the community has been conclusive that people are enjoying it currently. I will be curious to see how that unfolds going forward, and we will see a calling in this format at the end of the year, put on by MinMax Games, and you should plan to go to that because I will be there and it will be fantastic. So that's your news update for today. Some things are shifting in the Blitz format, which I'm personally very excited for, and I'm crossing my fingers that Blaze does not somehow pick up like 360 more points, because I'm playing her this weekend, if not at side events, at the Tampa Bay event. So if you enjoy this video, make the number go slightly higher, because numbers going up is what we do on this channel. As always, thanks for watching.